All right then, let's literally roll up our sleeves and write the simplest possible C++ program. I'm going to close out the settings that we had to add for Windows, Mac and Linux. You won't need these. But whilst in the settings tab, I am going to encourage you to look up font size. Just go to settings, text editor and font. And I'm going to set my font to 18. If yours is too big or too small, I just want to show you while I'm here that this is where you change it. All right, just close the tab out, you're good to go. I'm going to go back to the Explorer tab at the top left, close this test.cpp file, and let's start our hello.cpp. So file, new file. I'm going to immediately save the file. That has two benefits. One, you're less likely to lose your work. And secondly, if you notice, it's currently a plain text file down the bottom of the screen here. And by saving this immediately in, for example, documents in my case, as hello.cpp. Now I can choose that from the list C++, like so. Then it'll, in my case, sit next to test.cpp. When I save it as a CPP file, the system automatically switches to C++ formatting. And that is now going to help us to write our simplest possible program. So what is the simplest program that we can think of? Let's talk through that, and then we will try actually compiling it, which is going to be almost the same on all platforms. So we need to start because the terminal, when we do this, expects us to have something called a function called main. So there's a lot of concepts you're going to hit you all in one go. So my advice is don't try and understand them all in any depth now. See this as an overview. Just like a good way to study a book can be to overview it, then deeply in-view it, then review it. The same with this code, because a lot of concepts, even though it's super simple code, still quite a lot of concepts. All right, so when we try and run a C++ file from the command line, it expects there to be lines of code it can run, but they're in a certain place. And that certain place is inside a function called main. Now, the way you specify a function is with brackets. In fact, if you type main, it's trying to help you like this. And then if you hit return, look at that. It actually puts all that in for you. So the way that I did that, to recap, is I typed main, and I just let Visual Studio Code add all this in. Now, if it doesn't add all that in for you, it's probably because your Microsoft C++ extension is not turned on, so just check that. All right, I'm going to let it fill all this in, but I'm going to delete this scary looking stuff from inside these brackets, and then we'll talk about just the rest. Okay, so what's expecting to happen is it's going to call a function called main. What that has is a pair of curly braces which determine a code block, which is a series of lines of code, or statements. Another word for a line of code is a statement. This thing here in green, where we have star forward slash, and then, or forward slash star, then star forward slash, is a comment. Another way to do a comment, a single line comment, is forward slash forward slash. Your code goes here. All right, so your code would go here, but there's a little bit more to it than that for the most minimal C++ program. You also need to send back to the operating system, to the command line. I don't know if any of you remember the days of running programs from the command line, but at the end of the day, if there was an error, you may get told about it. And we have to return a status code, and the default status code is a number, an integer, and it is 0. Everything's okay. And all statements, except for comments, end with a semicolon. So quite a lot to get your head around here. This is a function called main. It gives back something called of type an integer. So it has a box that it can return a value into which an integer fits. What's an integer? It's a countable number. It's quite a large range of possible countable numbers depending on your system. It's probably something like -2 billion to +2 billion. That sort of range of numbers would fit in there. You then have a code block, these curly braces and this vertical line in Visual Studio Code. It's even collapsible, look, with a little minus. Yeah, code block in here. All your lines of code go in here. Then you return nothing. So this is actually the most minimal C++ program that I can think of. I'll also link you to a Computer File YouTube episode which shows you a very similar example in C rather than C++. So if we save that now, then let's look at how we may compile it and run it. Go to Explorer up in your file menu here, not in your file menu, but on the left-hand side, your button for Explorer. And then where you see your Hello CPP file, I want you to right-click that and say Open in Terminal. If you already had a different terminal open like this, then it may be stacked up in a list here, and you may be confused about which terminal. Just delete. You can delete all of your terminals with this little dustbin and start again until there is no terminal at the bottom. We need to open it by right-clicking and saying Open in Terminal. Why? Because that's going to put us in the right place. Now in Windows, we know that we're in the right place because it says the path here, which is the same as the path of our file, users ben documents. In Mac or Linux, you might want to do pwd for print working directory. That won't, of course, work in Windows. Now, if your Windows command prompt is set up properly, then when you type CL per the previous video, this will happen, which is great. So how do we actually compile and run this program? Let's take a look. On Windows, the way we compile is as follows. We just type cl hello.cpp, and it should go ahead and do something like this. Boom. Okay, awesome. Done. Now, if we do dir or ls in our Linux environment, we will see that we not only have the test CPP and the hello CPP, which is a very small file, 61 bytes, but we also have an executable file, 78,000 bytes, shows how much extra code has actually been pulled in here from somewhere else, and an object file, which we won't concern ourselves with at the moment. Now, to run this on Windows, we simply type hello. And what happens? Nothing. That's the correct response. We have an executable file that does nothing. Now, on Mac or Linux, how do you compile? On Mac or Linux, you're going to type g++, hello.cpp, and then we're going to specify an output file with -o, and then we're going to type hello for the output file. All right, so we're going to do that. And that, of course, won't work here on Windows, but that's what you want to type. And then to run it on Mac or Linux, you want to do /hello, and you will get a very similar result. Absolutely nothing. Okay, so that is how you write your simplest possible C++ program. Now, let's finish this off by just doing a little bit of magic that you don't need to understand, but we want to see our program actually do something. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to have to include a library file. So we come up to the top of our file. Just get used to manipulating around this file with the cursor keys and the like. Put hash, if you can find that on your keyboard, include with no space, should turn, what color is that? Like a magenta color, purple magenta color? And then a left angle bracket, stdio, and then a left angle bracket, then IO stream, and then a right angle bracket. Now, let's not concern ourselves right now at this very early stage of our learning exactly what this is doing. But what it's saying in essence is I need access to a code library that can help me write back to the terminal. I need some more code. Okay, so I'm going to include the IO stream library. And then where we have your code goes here indented with one tab here on line 5, if we've got it laid out right, what we want to do is the following. std::. That tells us that we're reaching into the standard library. cout, notice how as we type cout, it actually helps us. This is why we use Visual Studio Code, not just a text editor. Helps us to find commands like cout, which writes out to the console. Then we use a double left chevron. That's something called an overloaded operator. Again, I specifically don't want to get into the details of that right now. We're going to build this up layer by layer. Okay, and if we just go for some quotes and say hello world, and then a \n for a new line immediately on the end. This is a special character, an escaped character. Puts a new line on, and then a semicolon, because remember, every statement ends with a semicolon. If we type this and save, remember to save, now we can recompile. One way is to use the up arrow, or for better rehearsal of what you are wanting to type, it's cl hello.cpp. It's going to go ahead and compile. Then we just type hello, and off we go. We get hello world. On Mac and Linux, we do g++ hello.cpp, -o for the output file, hello, and then when we've done that, which won't work here on Windows, we then do /hello, which won't work here on Windows, but that would be the result you get. They would be the two lines. All right, awesome. We actually have got it doing something. Ignore the magic in here, ignore the magic in here, focus on what we had before, the utter basics of this program, which is the idea that programs that run from the command line expect there to be a function, which is a grouping of statements called main. They expect you to return a number. The number that they expect you to return when everything goes well is 0, so that's how you specify it, and your code goes here. Awesome. Congratulations. That is a bigger achievement than you think. I've broken this down really slowly for you. Some of you might be really frustrated. It's like, where's the Unreal Engine? I want to make pretty games. Sure. Go do that in Blueprint in our other course if you want to get into it that quickly. But we need to give you some understanding of what's going on under the hood here. Otherwise, C++ is going to hit you like a sledgehammer when we get into Unreal. So trust in the process. We've taught hundreds of thousands of people. Try and enjoy these simple things here. Enjoy getting into the details, understanding how to control things yourself from the ground up. And it won't be long before we've laid really strong foundations that we can build on and do exciting stuff. So thanks for watching this section, and I will see you in the next one.